Hi, welcome back to Desperate to Be Well YouTube channel, and today we're going to be covering two lists. We're going to look at the list for good health, and we're going to look at the list that talks about the factors for autoimmune disease, and we're going to compare the two, and I'm going to give you some hope at the end. So let's get started. So before we get started, medical disclaimer here. This is just informational purposes only. This is stuff that I found out over my journey for the last 12 years of chronic fatigue and a faulty pituitary gland and a slew of other problems. And I came across this, and it has helped me so much that I just have to share. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the list of what we're told to do for good health. We're told to have a good diet. Well, what does that mean? You know, there's over 25 different diets to choose from, between vegan, vegetarian, keto, and the list goes on. And so which one do you use? Because I bet you'll find somebody in every single one of those types of diets that say, hey, this is the one. This is the one that works. Yes, for them. But what about for me? How am I going to find a diet that works? Frustrating, right? And then as far as exercising goes, I am a huge fan of exercising. For a little while, I have not been able to exercise, but I don't want to get into that right now. But as long as the body's moving, and so technically, yes, I do exercise, and that's kind of a hard thing to wrap your head around sometimes. Is if you're used to doing, for me, like taekwondo workouts. I mean, intense, sweat pouring down, kicking each other's, hard workouts. And in fact, I think I've heard that it's one of the fastest calorie burning workouts that is out there. And so to me, I feel like if I'm not doing that, well, then I'm not really exercising. And that is not true. It's like, just keep the body moving. Walk, bike, stretch, yoga, all of that is exercising. It just may not be at as intense a level as I'm used to. So when I'm saying I'm not exercising, I actually am, but I'm just not exercising at the level I want to be. Hopefully, I'll get back there soon. And so the third thing is we're supposed to reduce stress. And we're given us lots of information about how to reduce stress. Then we have avoid toxins. I like to call toxins bad guys, because toxins mean different things to different people. But in a nutshell, it's whatever is not supposed to be in your body. Radiation, parasites, viruses, bacteria, you name it. Toxins, avoid them. And the fifth thing for good health is to avoid inflammation. Technically, some people don't realize this, but inflammation is actually a good thing, because the inflammation is where the body is healing itself. It gets a virus and there's acute inflammation. It fixes the problem, then the inflammation goes away. The problem is when the acute becomes chronic. And so that's going to lead us to the next screen. So for our list on autoimmune disease factors, we have genetics, we have hormones, industrial countries, we have infectious agents, environments, viruses, and something happened. So kind of vague, right? So this is where it gets exciting. Check it out when we compare the two. So if you look, for good health, it talks about diet. Diet, it could be the genetics, or it could be, who knows? Because which diet do you use? Which diet do you follow? Right? It's frustrating, okay? And then as far as exercising goes, there's many different ways to exercise. I love exercising. I so miss doing my taekwondo up in Montana, but I'm a lot out of shape now compared to then, but it is what it is. And so, but that being said, with exercising, just keep the body moving. We just have to keep the body moving, right? And so then the other thing would be on this list is reduce stress. When we think about stress, we think about hormones, right? We have cortisol is the main one we think about, but there's many other hormones as well. There it is, lining up with the autoimmune disease. And so then for the next one, we have avoid bad guys. We got the industrialized countries because they're the ones that have all the pollution. We have infectious agents. We have the environment. All of those things that are considered contributing factors to autoimmune disease basically falls under the category for good health of the bad guys. And then the last one, as far as avoid inflammation, I kind of touched on that already, is acute inflammation is necessary in order to get rid of those toxins that we're supposed to be avoiding, or the bad guys that we're supposed to be avoiding. But the problem is when acute becomes chronic. That's when it becomes an autoimmune disease. And that's where it gets interesting, because if you look at the list, it's the size, but the one thing that's left is something happened. What happened? I know that there has been thousands of people spending billions of dollars trying to figure out what this is. We know that it is when acute becomes chronic. But I think where the disconnect is we think that the body is changing what it's doing. We think the body has decided to stop attacking bad guys and has now started attacking itself. I disagree. I think if we look at it in a different way, we're going to be able to make a lot of progress in figuring out autoimmune disease. I think the body is still doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's not attacking itself on purpose. It's just continuing to do its job, pressing on, as always, but it's getting the wrong programming now. And yes, technically you could say, well, that's what we mean by the body attacking itself. It's the wrong programming is making it attack the body. No. This is where DISH comes in. And I think DISH is the key here, because we're looking at the something happened, and there's over 80 different autoimmune diseases, last I checked. But they all had one thing in common, this chronic inflammation. And so if we find out what the chronic inflammation really is, then does that fix 80 of the autoimmune diseases? Is it the autoimmune diseases because it's just attacking different parts of the body? Is that at different locations and causing different deficiencies, causing different problems with this underlying current of the same thing? I touched on this in my blog a while back about Edge of Tomorrow, if anyone's seen that movie, where they're always trying to kill off all of these invader aliens. Well, when I don't remember I can't remember the name of the main character, but it was played by Tom Cruise. He said that we just need to kill the alpha. Well, I think the alpha is the disconnect. And so to avoid the inflammation, like we were saying, the virus, toxins, other bad guys, we don't want it to go from acute to chronic. But we don't really know what does that except for the predisposition, because with the predisposition in play, something happened and we don't know what the something happened is. And then now we have an autoimmune disease. And so to me, I think that is the wild card, because if you compare the two lists, putting your math brain on, you have everything is in common except that one thing. And that one thing is the something happened. And the something happened only matters to those who have a predisposition. Lots of commas, right? Or lots of quotation marks today. So this is where the disconnect happened for me, because I was doing the healthy living lifestyle for decades. I was eating healthy. I'm so far from the standard American diet that I'm in shock when I see what people actually do eat these days. And then I was exercising. I was doing everything that I was told to do, but I still got an autoimmune disease. And I also got more than one. So that tends to happen too. And so what was going on? And so the more I looked at it, the more questions I had. And I kept continuing to ask many, many questions. And then when I finally came to this realization that something happened isn't the problem, because the something happened, we want to stop it before the happening of the something happened, right? Otherwise, we're never going to get ahead of autoimmune disease. And so many of the questions I have is, do more factors equate with higher the chance? Maybe. If so, would being more diligent prevent the possibility altogether? We know that's not so. Are individuals with only a few factors impacted more than those with many? I don't know. I didn't have very many of the criteria, but I still fell prey. And of course, that was before I knew about Camp Lejeune water poisoning, or I call it poisoning because they knew about it. Some people call it contamination, whatever. The bad water in Camp Lejeune. And so that happened to me before I was even born. So I actually had absolutely no control over that. So did that mean I was stuck and this is just my lot in life? Or was there some way I could fix it? And that's what started me on this journey, because it wasn't so much fixing it for me, is my kids. I mean, because I was told that it gets passed down. And so I wanted to stop the cycle of bad health in my family. And so I kept researching. And so I'm going to share with you at the end of the video what I came up with. Focusing on the number of toxins and viruses in the world alone could be incredibly discouraging. If this is prevention and it isn't preventing, what else is there to do? Lose hope? No thanks. What do we do if our life events or environment makes controlling these factors not possible? Blame someone or something for what we have no control over? Well, that doesn't fix anything if we do. If we just pray, hope, and wait for something to happen to never happen to us, it gives us a feeling of helplessness, especially if you already know that the cards are stacked against you. Or what about, do conventional approaches cover all possible factors? Maybe we should take a step back and look at the big picture. How about we look beyond conventional risk factors? How can we narrow down the problem for everyone and yet have individualized care and help? The problem could be something unique to each person, but at the same time, each person has the same thing. The 80 autoimmune diseases might have one thing in common, and just presenting in different ways. What about the possible hidden triggers? How do we avoid so many triggers and live? Why are they triggers? And what happens when triggered? I had so many questions. So the puzzling thing is that the autoimmune diseases and how people who follow seemingly healthy lifestyles can still develop these conditions make it difficult to find solutions. So much so, sometimes it may feel like the solution will never be found. Does that mean if the solution was actually found, it would be believed? What if the wild card was the main or only problem? What is this wild card? I think this wild card is the predisposition for autoimmune disease. And I think this predisposition, if we understood it, it would make a lot of difference. Because right now we have approximately $1 billion annually being spent on research trying to find a cure for autoimmune disease. That's a lot of money. And there's over, I don't know, I think there's 80, there might even be more than 80 now, autoimmune diseases. But they all have one thing in common: the body attacking itself. That's why it's called an autoimmune disease. Well, why is the body attacking itself? Something happened to those with predispositions. So do we get shoved aside and that's it? Or do we take a closer look? So I think if we're understanding what we are fighting, it'll make so much more sense. If I could get individuals to think outside of the box with me for a spell, I think identifying the predisposition will make a difference. Much research is being done in studying lab tests, blood, biomarkers, and many other factors. Like I mentioned earlier, over $1 billion a year going into research to figure this out. But I think we might not be able to see the answer under the microscope. And so are we going to believe the answer if it's not there? And so I think the answer is in this idea of a working dish. A dish stands for Defensive Individual Shield Hypothesis. And what it does is what determines if the person has a working dish, their body's being protected from all those factors. And the body is able to sort what's going on. The sorting is going to be a little confusing to you until you've read some of my blogs or followed me for a while. You'll understand what I'm talking about later. But the sorting is basically the lymphatic system and the nervous system working together. The lymphatic system sorts, and then it tells, and then the nervous system, if the lymphatic system is not doing its job, will run out of nutrients to have the nervous system work properly. And that's where I think the disconnect happens, because if you have a faulty dish, those things aren't happening. And that's where the breakdown happens. And I think that is the predisposition we are looking for. And I think that is what is determining the something happened. The something happened is this dish failing to do its job. And so if we can focus on the something happened, then I think we'll find answers. And my next video, it's going to be about the something happened. So I'll include a link below once I have the video to explain the predisposition in a much more detail for you. So, till next time.